Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching. Tonight, an arrest in a fatal hit and run. Plus, an OPP officer is laid to rest, remembered as a hero. Big shock over a big bill. We'll tell you about a man's battle with a rental car company and the surprise ending. And you say fog, we hear horns. We'll break down the meaning of a foghorn later tonight. We begin this evening with the fatal hit and run being investigated by Windsor police. They say the 51-year-old Windsor woman was sent to hospital but died from her injuries. It happened on Tecumseh Road East, and that's where CBC's Stacey Janzer is right now. Stacey, what happened?
Well, Kat, Windsor police say around this time yesterday, a green 2000 Ford Windstar hit a woman here at the corner of Tecumseh Road East and Chandler Road. As you can see behind me, it's a very busy road. The woman was taken to hospital but later died, and police say they are not going to be releasing the victim's name. Police say later that night that they were able to work in conjunction with Lakeshore OPP to arrest a man. 66-year-old man from McGregor has been arrested and charged with leaving the scene of an accident. Police say they have seized the vehicle and are looking to speak with any witnesses.
Stacey, we hear that often, that police are looking for witnesses to help them out. If somebody ever does see an accident, what should they do?
Well, Windsor police say what they're looking for is the most accurate information available. So if you're able to safely, and they did make a note, safely film to do that, because it is usually the most accurate and easy for them. But police really want drivers to remember that if you're ever in an accident, you need to stop.
When anyone gets involved in a motor vehicle collision, they need to stop, render aid, and exchange their information. Anytime they leave, it makes things worse for themselves, it makes for everything. If they realize they need to return, they should return immediately.
Again, Kat, that accident happened about this time yesterday here at the corner of Chandler and Tecumseh Road East, and police are looking to speak with any witnesses.
Thanks for this, Stacey. CBC's Stacey Janzer live tonight. An update now to a story we first brought you on radio and the web this morning. A car rental company has let a LaSalle man off the hook for repairs to a minivan he says he did not cause. Dale Molnar now with the story about how a tear in a bumper turned into so much more.
We have a front bumper cover overhaul, which is $88. One of the biggest costs, or the most priciest pieces here, is the radiator, with a few bent fins and non-consistent damage.
Rami Osman lists off some of the charges he received from a shop in Tilbury. It was to fix items on a minivan he rented last August. When he returned it to the Enterprise rental company at the airport after having it a week, they noticed a small tear about the length of a loonie on the front bumper. Osman didn't think he caused it, but agreed to pay for it, but wasn't expecting it to be more than a few $100s. When he got the bill in November, extra repairs were added, totaling nearly $2,800.
So I'm being charged for damaged pieces that are not damaged by me or can't even be proven that I damaged them, especially because they're inconsistent, they're in the wrong place, they're the wrong shape.
Osman can't understand how he could have caused any damage under the hood, especially a small L-shaped bend in the ribs of the radiator that didn't line up with the tear. Some of the repairs included a new radiator for $511, a condenser AC for $477, and an Air Pro scan for $95. The company also tacked on a $75 administration fee, a $441 loss of use fee, and just over $205 for diminishing the value of the vehicle. Osman was not given a reason for the surprise charges. He didn't want to go through insurance because he didn't want his rates to go up. And pictures the company sent also didn't convince him he caused the damage.
All these photos that I've been given are not time-stamped, so the van wasn't out of commission. It had a scratch on the front bumper. They could have rented it out right after I brought it, and then maybe some of this damage happened after, or even on the way to the collision shop.
Now, Osman says the people here at the Enterprise outlet at the airport did not do a walk-around with him before he rented a van. That would have documented what damage had already been done. An industry spokesperson says that's what Enterprise should have done. Meanwhile, the president of the Consumers Association of Canada also says the company can't prove Osman caused the damage.
All of the compound claims that the company have made just hold no water. I don't know how they can come up with something. They also haven't supplied him with an estimate, which he asked for. But by the look of it, it's damage that could have been caused during a parking lot incident or something. But it could just as well be when the car was in the control of the rental agency.
Dale Molnar joins us now in studio for more on this. Dale, you received a phone call from Osmond earlier today with a surprising update.
Well, that's right, Kat. Just today, Osmond got a call from a claims manager who said they were dropping the claim. Osmond has been fighting this since early December, but hasn't been able to get a straight answer. The claim was dropped after I reached out to Enterprise about this story.
Oh, we got a
Enterprise.
I'm sorry, Dale. Sorry, Dale.
What happened now?
That's okay. I apologize. We're just dealing with some technical issues now. I'm going to move on to our next story. The World Health Organization is expressing more concerns about surging COVID-19 cases in China.
We continue to ask China for more rapid, regular, reliable data on hospitalizations and deaths, as well as more comprehensive real-time viral sequencing.
The UN agency says hospitalizations and deaths due to COVID are likely far higher than what Beijing is reporting. Officials expressed concern about the risk to life in China. Questions about the reliability of China's data have grown since the country reversed its zero COVID policy last month. The WHO will meet tomorrow with Chinese scientists as part of a wider briefing among member states on the global COVID-19 situation. Here in Ontario, pharmacists are able to prescribe the antiviral Paxlovid for COVID-19. Prescriptions for the potentially life-saving medication have more than doubled in the last 3 weeks. Provincial data shows the number of prescriptions dispensed per day increased by 129% between December 12th and the 29th. But not all pharmacists have access to the medical information they may need to write a prescription. Here's a report from Ryan Patrick Jones out of Toronto.
Cabbagetown pharmacy owner Eddie Petrov hasn't yet prescribed Paxlovid, but he's ready to. It would help if the patient is a regular one whose health he's familiar with.
People that I, as a pharmacist, know are definitely a lot easier to help them out because I'm a little bit more aware of their medical profile, their medical history, what medications they're on. Whereas someone that's out of town, I don't necessarily have the same rapport or familiarity with them.
Paxlovid is taken orally within 5 days of symptom onset. While it's safe, it does have a lot of drug-to-drug interactions. It can also cause negative effects if given to people with kidney or liver dysfunction.
Paxlovid is a pretty complicated drug. So from a patient perspective, what you take is very simple once you have access to it. But the steps you need to follow to get to the point that it's safe to prescribe it, that requires a fairly high level of clinical knowledge and understanding and access to information.
Petrov says he can assess patients in part by using an online database where he can see their lab results, blood work, and comments from their doctor. But right now, not all pharmacists use these platforms.
When a program like this goes through, suddenly what was kind of a nice thing to have, it was nice to have lab values before, now you actually need them in order to provide the service. And so you're seeing that this pushes a lot of pharmacies, for example, to play catch up. Maybe they hadn't gotten around to getting access to lab values. Now they realize that they have to have it, but it takes a little bit of time for that to get going.
Grindrod says getting all pharmacies onto these systems is an urgent priority, both for Paxlovid, but also because pharmacists are now able to prescribe medication for 13 common conditions. Ryan Patrick Jones, CBC News, Toronto.
The funeral for slain Ontario Provincial Police Constable Greg Pershala was held in Barrie, Ontario today. The 28-year-old officer was killed on the line of duty on December 27th, 2 days after Christmas. CBC's Ali Chiasson has this report.
Cabbagetown pharmacy owner Eddie Petrov hasn't yet prescribed Paxlovid, but he's ready to. It would help if the patient is a regular one whose health he's familiar with. Cabbagetown pharmacy.
I apologize. We are dealing with some technical issues this evening. Please bear with us. We're going to go to commercial break and then we'll be right back in a few minutes. Please stay put. Welcome back. Really appreciate your patience with us this evening as we navigate through some technical challenges. I do want to go back to the story that we shared with you earlier about Enterprise and the individual, Rami Osman, who was dealing with a large bill from Enterprise, but Dale Molnar, we saw him earlier. That was a pre-tape, but now luckily we've got him live in studio with us for more on this. So Dale, you actually received an update from Osman earlier today, so tell us about it.
That's right, Ken. And the good take was fantastic. So unfortunately, I'm here live now. Now that's right, Ken. Just today, Osman got a call from a claims manager who said they were dropping the claim. Now Osman has been fighting this since early December, but hasn't been able to get a straight answer. The claim was dropped after I reached out to Enterprise about this story, and Enterprise sent me a statement saying, maintaining a customer's long-term loyalty is a top priority, so when a customer contacts us with concerns, we will do everything we can to properly investigate and resolve the claim as quickly as possible. Enterprise did not explain why the extra charges were added, and even though they say they did an investigation, they didn't explain what made them decide to drop the claim. Now, if you want to protect yourself from something like this, here are some tips. Do a walk around the vehicle before renting it. And Bruce Cran says you can demand to do that with the vehicle and with the person at the rental company. And you should also document the condition of the vehicle by shooting some video yourself with your own cell phone. It will have a timestamp, and you can prove what the condition of the vehicle was when you rented it. And we should have this newscast done by Valentine's Day. So.
Appreciate it, Dale. Thank you for your time. Thank you. In other news, the story that we told you about earlier as well, the funeral for slain Ontario Provincial Police Constable Greg Pershala was held in Barrie today. The 28-year-old officer was killed in the line of duty on December 27th, 2 days after Christmas. CBC's Ali Chiasson has this report.
Thousands of police officers from different jurisdictions across Ontario escort the fallen officer's casket. The largest contingent being OPP officers. They lost one of their own last week when Constable Greg Pershala was shot and killed during a routine call. Today, at his funeral, his brother and sister tell us more about the man behind the badge.
Greg's wisdom is something that particularly stood out to me. Greg became one of my greatest teachers, and I can't even imagine how much more I could have learned.
Greg was the most courageous person I knew. He was always doing challenging things that he was afraid of. But courage, it's not about never being afraid. It's about doing the right thing despite being afraid. Greg was very aware of the risks of the job, but he did it nonetheless.
The randomness of his death shocked things into perspective for everyone in attendance.
Most of them will have never met Greg in their life, probably never even heard his name before this happened. But he's part of the same family. And every member that comes here today will have probably looked at what happened to Greg and said, my God, that could have been me. He simply went to help someone in a ditch.
My husband's a police officer, he's an OPP officer, so it's a big deal.
I used to serve ex-RCMP. I was out west for a number of years, and this is important. You have to support these guys.
There have been 6 police deaths across Canada since September. We were in this very spot only in October, covering the funerals for 2 South Simcoe police officers who were shot and killed in the line of duty.
I'm so sorry for your pain. We all grieve with you as you mourn another loss of one of your own.
It's our turn to get after it for Greg, to pick up where he left off, to dig deep, to find the strength, faith, and resilience to carry on.
For those in uniform, that means continuing to serve in his and other fallen officers' honor. For his family, it's still hard to speak of him in the past tense.
Greg died a hero, and he lived as an inspiration. I may have not said it often, but I love you, Greg, and you'll always be my big brother.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Barrie.
We bring in Colette Kennedy now for a look at our local weather forecast. Colette, talk us through the latest.
Yeah, so much going on in the province, but not a whole bunch in southwestern Ontario, so that's kind of positive. Also, there was the fact that it went up to 13.7 degrees earlier today with some sunshine in there at times. So there are some good things, but the active weather is elsewhere, and that's what I'm sort of leaning into. Right now, it's 8 degrees. We've got 6 degrees Chatham-Kent, 9 still at Sarnia, but then you see where the temperatures drop off, only 3 in London and cooler readings as you head east from there. The wind's not very strong, but they are stronger also to the east as this batch of heavier rain is now pushing across the Niagara region and just the extreme eastern section of Lake Erie. Otherwise, this is a Lake Ontario event and pushing up towards Georgian Bay. So the heavier rains, the blue strikes you're seeing in here, yes, some embedded thunderstorms, so some locally heavier downpours there as well. And then we have to talk about this huge area in pink where we're looking at freezing rain and ice pellets, and that mixed with some very slick roadways that's kind of been expanding through the afternoon and into the evening hours. So any driving, well, chances that you have tonight that you need to be heading to that part of the province, I would continue to postpone to tomorrow because this will carry on through the evening and part of the overnight before it really improves. As I say, kind of been expanding, if anything. So seeing that towards the nation's capital, the warning, freezing rain warning back towards Kingston, Huntsville, which we're reporting freezing rain there as well, and a few other pockets where there's just that temperature story there that can allow it to happen as well. So on the edges, on the fringes too, some poor travel conditions there. Let's get back to what's happening a little bit closer to home here. Seeing, yes, some cloud trying to break up. Quite a bit fills back into tomorrow. Now, there might be the odd flurry through the day, but it's more towards tomorrow evening. We see that get slightly more organized, so very wet flurries because of where the temperatures will be, just kind of above freezing, but still think of that for tomorrow evening. Shouldn't be anything too significant. The overnight temperatures, those will continue to fall off, so we will be dealing with a different day in terms of how it's going to be feeling for your Thursday compared to today. It was kind of a one-day only event when we finally got kicked into that warm sector. And on the cooler side of things, where they're not just looking at the freezing rain when you get to the border with Quebec, it's more some snowfall they're talking about there, 10, 20, in some cases even 25 centimeters of snowfall with this system. Okay, so for tomorrow, got to reset things a little bit. The high will just be 3 degrees. I know this icon is making it look like, oh, a terrible day. It's not. It's light in nature. And again, it's not until we get probably past 4 or 5, it gets a bit more organized and we get some of those wet flurries. Friday, there's still a chance for some flurries. We're kind of mixing with very, very light showers, 3 degrees. And then as we head towards the weekend, looks like we should be getting some sun coming back at us, even if we see some flurries towards the second half of the weekend again.
Something to look forward to there. Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we'll have some more news updates for you. Stay with us.
Gem.
2 days of voting have still left the U.S. Congress without a speaker in the House of Representatives. The lawmakers have gone through 6 rounds of balloting, and there's more to come. Divisions inside the Republican Party have stymied the process.
No member-elect having received the majority of the votes cast, a speaker has not been elected.
The Republicans hold a slim majority in the House, but senior Republican Kevin McCarthy has been unable to get the 218 votes he needs to secure the position. He is opposed by a small, extremely right-wing group within the party, known as the Freedom Caucus. Government business in the U.S. will remain at a standstill until a speaker is elected. This is the first time in 100 years the House has not been able to elect a speaker on the first ballot. That there is a sound Windsor might be getting tired of this week. A ship's very loud horn. But what do they mean? Why do they sound the way that they sound? Harbor Master Peter Barry joined Windsor Morning to explain it all.
The 3 horns you're going to hear quite often around the area of the Ambassador Bridge means I'm making the bend at the Ambassador Bridge, passing to your port. So that's, you'll hear a ship go 3 times, the ship that's meeting it will go 3 times, and so we'll hear 6 times. You're like, well, that's pretty incredible. What a neat noise, and it really is. When you hear 5, that usually means there's an irate ship captain somewhere. He or she are losing their mind because somebody's in the way. And typically in the spring and the late fall, when the fishing season happens, that's a sign that the fisherman has his earbuds in, he or she's having a great time on their boat, and they don't turn around and keep watch for these large ships that can't turn on a dime.
Wow.
It takes a kilometer for a ship to come to a stop, and that's at a slow speed. So it is difficult. But the fog here, there's a repeated foghorn at the entrance to the Detroit River near Amherstburg. That's part of the aids to navigation. Otherwise, it's all done by lights, because electronics now have made it that much easier.
It's definitely a sound you can feel, I find.
It is. It's a rich sound. I love the sound of the foghorn. I grew up on the East Coast, so lighthouses had foghorns, and it's just a wonderful sound. The ships are actually blind coming around the turn by the Ambassador Bridge, so they really need fishermen to stay out of that area at any time of the year, especially with fog. We won't see anybody.
Pope Francis praised his predecessor, the late Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, in his general weekly audience today from the Vatican. The tribute came as thousands of people paid their respects on the last day of public viewing ahead of tomorrow's funeral mass. Katie Nicholson has the latest from Vatican City.
This is the final day of visitation for Pope Benedict, who is lying in repose at St. Peter's Basilica. Over the last 2 days, 135,000 people have moved through the Basilica. Today, we've been speaking with Canadian clergy who are here for the funeral tomorrow, including Cardinal Collins from Toronto, really speaking about Pope Benedict's legacy. Cardinal Collins pointing out that Benedict was the first pope to sit down with Indigenous people and begin discussions about the impact of residential schools. He also pointed out that this was a pope who was at the helm during a time the church was being rocked by multiple sexual abuse scandals. And Cardinal Collins says that Pope Benedict maybe doesn't get enough credit for how much work he did taking the church through those scandals.
I think it was a surprise to him when he went from being a professor in the classroom of the library and suddenly he became bishop of an enormous diocese. So I think it took him a while to kind of get an understanding of the gravity of the situation, but he did very quickly. And once he came to be the Congregation of Doctrine of the Faith, he put in place tougher laws and centralized the dealing with these issues. But not just that, not just laws. You have laws in the book that don't mean anything. But he implemented them. He booted out of the priesthood hundreds of unworthy priests who should never have been ordained.
Collins points out that it was Pope Benedict who was the first pope to sit down face to face with survivors of sexual abuse and begin that dialogue as well. Now, today we also heard from Pope Francis, who had a general audience this morning. He again spoke glowingly about his predecessor, who he described as a great teacher of Catholic doctrine. We can expect more of that praise tomorrow at the funeral as Pope Francis presides over the funeral of his predecessor. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Vatican City.
That is it for CBC Windsor News. We're going to leave you tonight with more beautiful shots of the fog from Steve Bureau. Enjoy and have a great night.